Unfamiliar ceiling. I muttered, staring up as I slowly woke up. The faint beeping of a heartbeat monitor and my own absolute weakness telling that something serious had happened. I didn't go to hospitals basically ever. I blinked. I could see the ceiling. I wasn't wearing my glasses. I hadn't seen anything clearly past a foot from my face without my glasses in a decade. Too many years of staring at a computer screen. What? I asked, my throat raw and dry, but instantly, I was even more on edge than before. That wasn't my voice. I jerked upward only to realize I could barely move, a shocked gasp escaping me causing the machine to start beeping, as my heart rate skyrocketed. Moments later, a doctor wearing the strangest clothes I had ever seen entered and quickly went to work on me. My gasped questions were ignored with clinical detachment. Until suddenly I felt myself passing out. The doctor. He had drugged me. I had learned a few things since I woke up from a coma. 1. I wasn't me. Or I was a me that wasn't me. It got complicated, so I stopped thinking about it. I'm a me that was me. Good enough. 2. This wasn't my earth. My home. My people. The first time I had a doctor enter my room after I woke up for the second time, but his entire right arm was a twitching, monstrous-looking limb full of needles and grabbers had me damn near jump out of bed from him. I definitely didn't cry though. Fuck you. 3rd. The thing that explained all of it. It was the year 2075. I wasn't in the United States. No, this was the free city of Night City. Something a doctor had explained gruffly after they all realized I had amnesia from my stint in a coma. Night City though? That was something I knew about. Cyberpunk. I knew all about Night City. That alone scared the shit out of me more than anything, because that meant I was in danger. My body was worse than atrophied. The doctors refused to explain what had actually happened to me, simply telling me that my family would explain when they arrived. That it wasn't their job. It made me feel even more helpless. Realizing that these doctors taking care of me, they literally didn't care about me. Didn't even pretend to. Thankfully my family arrived about 4 hours after I woke up for the second time. I had been laying in my cramped little room, fingers weakly picking at my neck where I had an actual USB-style port into the back of my head. It felt weird. But also kinda cool. My eyes were also crazy good. Perfect vision, and the ability to telescope a bit. I spent most of the few hours laying in bed unable to raise myself into a sitting position, playing with my vision. Until the door suddenly burst open. The noise from the hallways suddenly reached in through the soundproofing. Although I realized the soundproofing was probably meant more to keep the noise from inside the rooms from the outside rather than the other way around. But a man entered the room, practically pushing past one of the doctors, cursing at him in Japanese that my mind instantly translated into English without a thought. Bastard. Get out of my face. Don't think I won't cut you down. He cursed as the doctor seemed to finally back off a bit. The man that entered, well, the older teenager. I could still see the youth on his face, as he was trying to grow a pretty crappy beard. But it was the outfit, the style. The fact he was wearing an Oni mask around his neck, obviously having taken it off as he entered, that twigged in my mind hard. Tiger claws? This guy was a ganger. A Japanese gang straight out of Akira. Hell, they even had the bikes. Emoto, he said, his voice going a little soft as he noticed me staring. I blinked, raising my hand up to point at my face. Me? He blinked in return, looking surprised. His hair, which glowed in different colors as if made of fire, kept catching my attention even as the boy turned to the doctor. The fact he had a damn sword on his hip, probably the reason the doctor quickly raised his hands. As I was trying to tell you before you entered, your sister seems to have short-term amnesia from the coma. Or the circumstances that led her there. We didn't detect any brain damage from our scans. So she will likely recover. Damn it. He cursed in Japanese, which I instantly translated before he seemed to take his hand away from his katana as he sauntered over to my bed. Despite myself, I felt a hint of fear at his glaring face and even flinched a bit as he drew near, which caused him to slow his face, blanking out as I took in the lines of metal that coated his cheeks, making it look like he had a tiger's fangs on his cheeks. You don't need to worry, Motoko. You are safe. I'm sorry, he whispered as he took a seat and simply stared at me for a while as if expecting something. Motoko? I asked. That was a new one. Is that me? I couldn't help but add on. He stared at me in shock for a moment before reaching up and rubbing his face as he took a moment to try and recover from his surprise. Yeah. You are Kusanagi Motoko. My little sister. Don't fear, Emoto. I made sure everything will be alright. Motoko Kusanagi? Like Ghost in the Shell? I reached up weakly to check my hair. Black. Not purple. Dang. That would have been kinda cool. I nodded a little to him. What else was I supposed to do? I guess this was my older brother? I mean, I didn't even know his name. What's your name? I asked a little weakly, mostly because I had a feeling it wasn't going to be taken well. It wasn't. The boy looked like I had just stabbed him for a moment. Junichiro. Kusanagi Junichiro. Your elder brother. Jun, I agreed instantly, which had him snort after I said it. Say Juni, I'm your brother. Juni then, I agreed easily. He frowned a little as I went quiet, just sort of looking him over. He was antsy, foot tapping a rhythm and his hands never not moving. He was wearing a neon green jacket, Asian dragons on the shoulders, every inch a Japanese biker gang member. Tattoos on his chest that I could see under his armored vest. Yep, he had those too. This guy was straight out of Akira. If he started screaming Tetsuo, I was out of here. I decided with a nod to myself, which seemed to attract his attention as he had just been staring as I looked him over. The people that took you are dead. They might have grabbed your cyberware, but that can be replaced. Has been replaced. Mostly. Just hang in there, Emoto. You will be out of the hospital soon. He told me firmly, as he stood. Seemingly unable to sit still anymore, he left the hospital room in a rush, and as the door closed behind him, I could just make out his raised voice talking to the doctor before it shut closed and cut me off from the outside again. How weird. This is home, he told me 3 days later, when apparently the insurance I was on had decided that now that I was no longer in a coma they weren't paying anymore. Welcome to Night City. He had picked me up in a weird car, and old Mahia Supron. I learned from the badge on the car. Basically a van. But the sort that was cheap as cheap could be. I borrowed it from a neighbor. Your wheelchair wouldn't fit on my bike. He informed me, sounding embarrassed at driving the thing, but he had helped me inside, put my new wheelchair into the back and drove me out of the hospital parking lot and into the city. The very crowded, smelly, and dangerous city. A city where anyone can die at any time, and no one would care. I shivered at the thought. But then he pulled me from my fears by pulling into a parking garage. Honestly, this part of the city was 80% trash and garbage piled up, and 20% neon signs. It felt super surreal as June pushed me over the sidewalks, glaring at anyone who dared take a second look at me as he pushed me down the street towards a building that looked like any other to me. This is home. Do you remember it? He asked again, prompting me from the moments of introspection I had been in. No. It looks like everything else, I told him. Looking over my shoulder, I could tell he was frowning. This has been our home for years, since Okasan and Oto-san died. He tells me, and I nod. I guess I would have had parents then. I returned to looking forward as he wheels me into the entranceway. As we entered, 2 older Asian men were playing some board game in the corner to my left, and the lobby was dimly lit and a little smoky. I wrinkled my nose a bit at the smell as well. What a dump. June brought us towards the elevator, which to my surprise did work, and he hit the button for the 5th floor. The door to the left of the elevator was ours. He wheeled me inside and I couldn't help but look around in interest. It was a small apartment, full of lots of Asian stuff. Posters for Asian music groups. Knickknacks. A place to light incense directly in front of us as we entered. It was an odd mix of modern and future tech, I noticed. The whole place. The apartment, the city, it all felt like that. Home. He spoke, wheeling me around. The bedroom was on our right. A single large room with the weird bed emplacement that Night City seemed to like. Including there was a small closet-like room that was apparently my own bedroom. I blinked as I entered, as the entire room was full of tiger claw memorabilia. I really liked the tiger claws, huh? I asked him, earning a laugh from June. Of course. Our family has been part of the gang since Oto-san was your age. We have always been with them. You were. You will join them too once you recover and get a little older, he assured me, trying to sound sure of himself. But I had caught the hesitation. I had heard the doctors. They hadn't bothered trying to hide my circumstances during the 3 days of quiet. Scavs. The sort of people that would be considered grave robbers in any other century. At least we would call them that, if they actually waited for someone to die first. They were kidnappers. People that took those with cyberware, or not off the street and scavenged the cyberware or organs, even if the person was still alive. That is what happened to me. It was why my body was so fucked up after the coma. They hadn't bothered to be gentle when digging out the little cyberware I must have had. Even if apparently I had been rescued after. I still don't know how. I hadn't had the heart to bring it up with June. Every mention of my circumstances would leave him glaring and looking as if he was ready to commit, well, a murder. Anyway, between the scavs, loss of cyberware and the coma, my body was fucked. Weak as a kitten. I couldn't even walk without assistance. Not that the hospital had seemed to care. Luckily June had gotten most of the basic stuff replaced. My eyes were working after all. I couldn't imagine waking up only to realize my tech eyes were literally just pieces of junk unable to work, since the scavs had pulled the processors right out of my head. Oh, here. June offered, putting a bag of stuff onto the table beside my small bed in my little closet bedroom. Your stuff. Everything you had on you when you entered the hospital. I don't know. I don't know if it will help, but maybe something in there will jog your memory. Love you, Toko, he said, quietly pushing a kiss onto the top of my head as he seemed to once more get too antsy to stand around. He walked out of the room, sort of stomping a bit. Poor kid. His little sister gets kidnapped, put into a coma and wakes up with amnesia. Rough. Well, I might as well. Maybe I can learn a bit about who I was. About Motoko. I pulled open the bag and winced. Yep. Tiger Claw fangirl. Every piece of clothing had some Japanese biker gang icon, or sticker, or something. A jacket that had a tiger on the back. How original. At least it looked warm. I went through the stuff. To my discomfort, the clothes were, well, not looking great. Like they had been worn as a girl was kidnapped and had scavs take her cyberware. The pair of socks inside the bag, for example, were basically brown. Even if they had originally been white. I grimaced as I decided to throw those away. I hoped it was just my blood, but I had a feeling it hadn't been stained by just my blood. A little grossed out, I decided to finish it up. Putting the socks to the side, I pulled out the jacket that was looking a little rough and set it on a desk. I don't think June was very rich, so I would probably have to deal with it regardless. Shoes. Pants, that were hard to look at considering how neon they were. Then I found actual stuff at the bottom. A small baggie of shards. The data transfer devices of the future, basically super USB drives. There were 2 of them, no idea what was on them. A few pieces of jewelry. A piercing that I realized was probably a nose stud after a few moments of looking at it. Did my nose have a hole in it? I would have to check later. Then at the bottom, a little case. This was a weird thing, because it didn't look like anything else she had. This case was smooth and unblemished. A single word across the top in Japanese. Hema. Gamer. I repeated. In English after a moment. Opening the case, it had a shard inside. A lot of shards were kept in cases like this, well, nicer shards anyways. Considering I had nothing else to do, I popped the shard out of the soft foam, and with a bit of a shiver because it still made me wig out a bit, I pushed the shard into the slot on the side of my neck just behind my ear. Gamer system initializing. Dash. I blinked as I jerked awake. Hey. Motoko. You okay? June was there kneeling in front of me as I looked around. I was in the room in my wheelchair with the bag of stuff I had been looking through on my lap. His terrified face made me blink. I'm okay? I offered, simply rubbing my eyes a bit. Did I fall asleep? No. No, I didn't. The shard. I reached for the back of my head to push the shard out, but there was nothing there. My fingers felt empty ports. Don't scare me like that. If you get tired, get into bed. Or if you can't call me, I will help you. He nearly growled as he stood up and seemed to pace for a bit to calm down. Sorry. I told him firmly as I pushed the bag out of my arms. I didn't realize I had fallen asleep. Come on, I got dinner. You hungry? He asked as he finally stopped pacing and turned to me. Sure. I nodded as he got behind my wheelchair and pushed me out of the room to the other side of the apartment, where a small kitchen nook was located. Right next to the bathroom, I noticed. Nice job, architect. Sure that doesn't cause problems. Especially since the bathroom didn't even have a door. I was wheeled out in front of the table and a burrito was placed in front of me. June grabbed his own and started eating. Right. Cyberpunk people don't really cook. It was all street and vendor food. I unwrapped the burrito, and after a few bites realized I must have a taste for it from before. Because part of me felt a little grossed out at the inside, another part just chowed it down without any discomfort. Oh well. When in Rome. After a quiet meal, June cleaned up and threw the trash away before walking over to me. You remember the exercises the doctors gave you? He demanded, and I nodded. It wasn't so much something they taught me as they threw a shard at me that had an exercise routine I should do to help regain some muscle so I could actually walk. Yeah. Well, get to it. Best to do it right after eating. I need to head out. I got some work I need to do. Don't hurt yourself. You have my number, right? He once more demanded, and I nodded. It was sort of weird having a phone system in your eyes, but I did have June's number. Good. Call me if you need anything. And Ms. Kagura next door knows she might need to help you out with stuff. You good? He asked, and I gave him a thumbs up. I might be pretty weak, but I didn't feel like I just got out of a coma. Or maybe this is what it was like out of a coma and I had in my head TV coma patients. Who knows? I watched June hurry around the apartment grabbing his gear, putting everything on until he looked like the tiger claw that he was. Only mask and katana on his hip included. He even grabbed a pistol out from his room and holstered it on a chest rig. Be safe, I told him, earning a startled look from him at my words before his smile melted into something soft. I will. Then all was quiet and I had a task ahead of me. A set of exercises to try and build up enough muscle in the hopes I would get out of this chair. I pushed myself back from the table and started raising up my right leg, grimacing at just how hard it was just to hold it out in front of me. My tiny stick-like leg might as well be nothing but bone. After that I let it down slowly and did it with my left. Over and over I raised them until my thighs were burning red hot. Finally I stopped, unable to do another, my legs literally shivering from the effort. 100 body XP gained. The message popped up before my eyes. An electronic message just like I would get when receiving a phone call. Easy to ignore but still there. I pushed it and it disappeared. Then nothing. What was that? I blinked as I couldn't help but have a niggling feeling. Stats? I asked. Nothing. Status? Same. Gamer? Still nothing. Irritated, I very awkwardly tried to access my own system. It was like trying to access a VR system with my eyes. If I flick my eyes in this way, a small sideboard of options will appear. Phone. Text. Scan. A list of different things, but I was looking for something else. Gamer. I muttered as I found it, deep down the list, and in fact it was almost not right. Where the other icons were a bright neon red color, this one was almost dark hidden at the bottom of the list, as if it was 3 or 4 options further down than the list went. I shivered. I was really hoping this wasn't a virus or something. I pushed it and a moment later I knew it wasn't a virus. The stats screen from Cyberpunk 2077 appeared in front of my eyes. Body. Reflexes. Cool. Technical ability. Intelligence. I muttered, reading the 5 main stats. This was crazy, but I felt a grin start to reach my face the first time I actually felt like I wasn't trapped in a city trying to murder me at every corner. I can use this, I said with complete confidence. Completely ignoring that all of my stats were either a 1, or even in the negatives like body. Yep. Ignoring that completely. 5 stats set up in a very familiar array. I breathed out, clicking on body. I had just earned some XP, so what did that actually mean? Unfortunately nothing happens. It simply seemed to shift under my attention before finally something popped up. No skills unlocked. Fuck. I grumbled. That meant I didn't just have the skill? Well, that was fine. I just needed to grind? But how much XP did it take to earn a level? I had no idea. With a sigh I started pumping my arms up and down, exercising the weak jelly that I called muscle, seeing what it would take to turn that negative body stat into a positive. Dash. I was sweating, panting and tired, but I had got another message with an XP pop-up. 100 body XP gained. I sighed. Just that. With no mention of how far I would need to go. I ended up washing my face a bit out of the bathroom sink as I didn't want to try and take a shower. and after cleaning up I rolled into my bedroom and managed to fall into my bed. I sighed. I hadn't been able to sleep well for the last few days unless the doctors put me out with drugs. Being stuck in Night City had made me anxious. But the moment I rolled into bed and decided to sleep, I blinked awake. What? I sleepily grumbled, looking around and noticing that the sun that had been setting not long ago was now completely gone. I checked my room for a clock for a few moments before my brain caught up. Right, I have cyberware now. My eyes flicked and after 2 minutes of struggle I got the time to display. I had slept 8 hours. I also had a weird icon on my HUD. It had the same discoloration as the gamer tab in my program list. With a few moments of messing around I managed to push it and figure out what it said. Rested XP increased by 25%, 5731 remaining. Huh. Right, that was a thing. I muttered before smiling. My body didn't ache. My legs didn't burn and my arms were perfectly fine other than still being jello. He, I giggled to myself as I weakly clambered back onto my wheelchair. Time to grind this shit. Dash. You okay? June asked as he finally came home mid-afternoon the next day. He looked sweaty and tired, but seeing me sitting in front of the TV doing little exercises seemed to make him happy as I threw him a thumbs up. I'm okay, just watching whatever this is, I informed him. And I honestly was confused. Cyberpunk TV was fucking weird. He grimaced a little as he noticed whatever weird show I was watching must have been familiar to him. Try not to watch that garbage, he told me, flicking the channel with his cyberware seemingly overriding my control. Man, even in 2075 elder siblings stole the remote, huh? He ended up on a channel that was showing cartoons actually, which satisfied me a little. I hadn't found this channel in my exploration of the channels earlier. I grimaced a bit as I started raising my legs again. They were mostly recovered from a previous round. Sure, over-exercising was bad. Normally, I had already done a few tests and it seemed my instant sleep really did fix any issues, including overdoing it. So I was forcing myself to exercise a lot. I couldn't do anything if I was stuck in a wheelchair. Glad you are exercising. I was worried I would have to force you into it. You aren't usually so quick to do what you are supposed to, June mentioned with a bit of a chuckle, but it died when he realized I wasn't following his script. Oh. Am I usually bad at listening? I couldn't help but ask. Who was Motoko Kusanagi? What had she been like? It was honestly sort of interesting. It must have hit him then, that his little sister still didn't remember. Yeah. You're a brat. Never listening, always getting into trouble. Going out with chums who you shouldn't trust. Just be careful from now on. I don't want to. He stopped, not finishing his conversation. June was hot-headed, I realized, quick to explode. His voice had risen just as he talked as he grew a little heated. Okay. I'll be careful, June-nie. I tell him, trying to sound cute, which earned a chuckle from the older boy. You sound like that whenever you are lying, he tells me with a soft grin on his face. Of course, it only made the fact he was grinning at me with such a gentle smile over an oni face he wore while probably out gangbanging. Oh, June-nie. Do we have anything about tech or netrunning? There was a show about a netrunner and stuff and I wanted to learn about them. I asked, since I was still stuck in a chair. Netrunning could be a useful trick. Plus it was kinda cool. Like a cyber wizard. Oh geez, not this again. You gave up on netrunning last time, please don't try to do it again. It took months before you decided you weren't any good at it. He groaned into his palms. Huh? I guess Motoko had been a netrunner fan? So I have stuff about it? Where? I ignored his complaints to focus on the important bit. He sighed again. Fine. At least it will keep you busy. I'll go get your netrunner junk out from storage. Just don't burn out the radio this time, he told me firmly, and I blinked. Yeah, that would have been a big mess up. Sure, I replied as I continued raising my legs up one at a time. It was getting easier to do. After dinner, June disappeared outside for a while before coming in with a dusty cardboard box. Took me a while to dig this junk up. Don't ruin our radio. Or our fridge. Or anything, he told me firmly, and I nodded as he settled the box into my room and I could look through it. It was child stuff. The sort of thing little kids might get to learn some basic skills. But that was fine for me. a stack of old shards that after slotting a few turned out to be beginner lessons on netrunning. To my surprise, they weren't just some off-the-street vendor stuff, but something that the Tiger Claws had put together. And the reason I had a set? Natasha Kusanagi was the netrunner who created the training programs. Natasha Kusanagi? Probably my mother. Huh? Apparently June had been right. My family was in deep with the Tiger Claws and had been for at least a generation. Weird. Still, it was interesting, and I listened to the recorded primer for a good while before I was pulled out of the recording by June trying to force me to eat. Breach protocol experience gained. Skill not unlocked, no XP gained. Breach protocol unlocked. 100 intelligence XP gained. I blinked at the alert as June dragged me to the table and pushed another burrito into my face. I ate it slowly as my eyes flickered and I went to my stats screen. Now when I hovered over intelligence, a list appeared. Breach protocol. I had my first skill. I chewed slowly as I checked it over. Right now it seems to be inactive. Nothing was really there. But that was because I noticed after a moment. It was currently at level 0. I wondered what would happen when I leveled that up to 1. Hey Juni. Thanks for pulling the netrunning stuff out of storage. Natasha Kusanagi. Is that Mom? I asked and he seemed to jerk for a moment before nodding around his burrito. Yeah. I forgot Okasan made that netrunning guide. Damn. He muttered, grumbling a bit. So Mom. Okasan was a netrunner? Yeah. A good one too. It's how our parents met. Okasan was a target on a job, but Otasan couldn't zero her. Ended up helping her hide out and get away. She joined the Tiger Claws a few years later. Huh? Otasan was a cyberpunk? Yeah. He was good with a blade. June offered, looking over to where his own katana had been put up on a little stand near the incense holder. Or I guess from the way he was looking, that was Otasan's sword as well. Geez. Anyway, thanks again for finding it. It's interesting. That's not what you said last time. I believe you said it was too boring to finish. He retorted, which had me shrug. I wasn't the same as I was after all. Well, good, maybe it will keep you out of trouble. Just don't try anything without letting me know. You can run into some ice and get brain fried if you play around, he demanded. Although I was pretty sure since I wasn't connecting anything to my brain that wasn't likely. I will. I offer with a nod. I was more looking for something to play with while I was stuck waiting for my own recovery. With that, we settled in to watch some garbage TV and I continued to push my body well beyond what I should. Hey. Toko. What are you doing? Look at yourself. He grunted, having been engrossed in a show as I continued my butterfly kicks for far longer than I should. My breath was coming out heavily, and I was definitely sweating like a pig. You shouldn't be pushing yourself that hard. Sorry. I offered tiredly before trying and failing to slide into my wheelchair. I really needed a good sleep. Idiot. He cursed at me in Japanese, which made me chuckle a little, which certainly didn't help. But he picked me up and put me in my wheelchair and wheeled me to my bed. Night, Juni. I muttered tiredly before deciding I wanted to sleep, and once again it was instant. My body shut down and I fell into a dreamless rest. The routine set in. Wake up, use the hour buff of extra experience to really hammer my physical training. Seeing those little alerts popping up felt super good. 125 body XP gained. I smiled as another one popped up. Especially since I finally figured out how to check the experience to the next level. It felt almost like it wasn't complete. The gamer system that I was using was weird, but on my first stat gain, when my body went from negative to a big fat 0, I finally saw the XP bar. It just took me looking at my stat menu in a weird way. Seriously, it was so frustrating. I needed to read an actual manual on these eyes. I had no idea how to get them to actually work. But it was pretty standard. 1000 XP from level 0 to level 1. I nodded, pleased to get that out of the way, especially since as I had reached out of the negative levels, I was finally able to stand, and actually walk. Surprise, I said to June as he got home late that night, startling the older boy as he saw me not sitting in my wheelchair but actually standing, resting on the edge between living room and bedroom. You're walking? He asked, sounding really quiet as he pulled down his Oni mask and threw it onto the couch before walking forward and pulling me into a tight hug. Yep. My legs are feeling stronger. I might have pushed myself a bit too much sometimes, but I'm definitely seeing some results. I say into his jacket, muffling my speech, but he still heard me. Good. That's really good. Maybe your memories will come back soon too, he said, sounding. Well, he sounded like a teenager that was taking care of his kid sister with amnesia. Damn, June really did have it rough. I was gonna have to do something nice for him in exchange. After hugging the life out of me, he seemed to remember he was hugging his sister and pulled away, but slowly, to make sure I was standing and not wobbling. I wasn't, but it did take me a second to regain my feet. Uck. I can't wait until my body is back to where it should be. We should celebrate. How about some noodles for dinner? He asked, looking excited. We can go down to Cherry Blossom Market and hit the noodle bar there. I'm not sure I'm up for a long walk, June. I cut him off. As much as I liked the idea of leaving the apartment, which I actually wasn't sure I liked at all now that I thought about it. But I was at the slow walking and movement stage, not the walk down the block stage. Oh, he offered before frowning, glaring at himself. At least I hoped it wasn't at me. I'll go get some. Bring it home. You can rest and we will eat together. Just like before, he said, almost demanding of the world for that to happen, and I nodded happily. Noodles sound good, I told him, causing him to relax and then hurry back out of the apartment. Cherry Blossom Market. I remember it from the game. It was a little marketplace. There was that samurai superfan down there too. Was it close? So since dinner was coming to me, I settled in to listen to some more of my Netrunner's guide. It wasn't perfect. Obviously Mom had intended for there to be actual lessons on netrunning interspersed with the guide. But it was still useful, and I could see my experience going up. 100 breach protocol experience gained. I nodded, pleased. It was slower than leveling body. Probably because I wasn't actively doing anything, but it was still fascinating. If someone offered you a verbal and text primer on being able to access the net, being able to access nearly any device around you to control, wouldn't you want to learn it? Dinner. June called out as he came in carrying ramen in a to-go carrier and placed both bowls on the table as he settled in and made sure I could reach everything. I took one taste of it and actually smiled. Unlike the burritos, this actually tasted good. I dug in with relish and June seemed to relax as we both enjoyed our dinner together. T2. I grunted as I forced myself up. Push-ups were not easy, and my arms were still jello, but it was really good experience. 100 body XP gained. Turns out I was now strong enough to do basic exercises, and while lifting my arms and working my incredibly weak body did give me XP after a while of doing it. Actual direct exercise was a whole other class. The first time I did an actual push-up I gained XP every rep. Of course I could only do one rep at a time at the start. But with the ability to go to sleep and wake up fully recovered, I was cheating while June was out of the house. Normally the amount of muscle pain I would be in would put me out of commission for days, if not more, considering how weak I still was. But with a nap I was back and ready to push myself again. Turns out I could actually adjust how much time I slept for as well. There was an actual 24-hour clock when I decided to sleep. I just hadn't seen it because I don't usually keep my eyes open when trying to sleep. Stupid weird gamer system. T3E. I grunted, managing a third push-up, but it left me on my stomach gasping, my arms burning, and I realized they weren't going to be any help getting me back on my feet. Okay, I'm out, I whispered as I simply rested on the floor for a while. Until I realized just how gross the floor was. Damn, when was the last time we cleaned this place? I grunted, being able to look at the ground. I could see just how much dust and trash had been stuffed in the corners. Grumbling, I rose up, mostly without my arms since they were dead, and I wandered around the apartment, really taking it in. We were really poor, huh? I couldn't help but think. Most of the stuff was old, worn or badly repaired. With that I realized I was looking at the metal slats that blocked the window and pushed the button to open them, taking in the world outside the apartment for the first time since the drive home. The world was full of trash. But there right outside the window was a pretty sakura tree in full bloom. The pink petals not the only color I could see, but they were the only natural color, surrounded by faded graffiti or punks walking around in neon clothes. It sort of fit this city. It wasn't a prison like a certain girl once thought. It was just overgrown, a neglected garden. Huh? I've been inside too long. I'm getting philosophical. I couldn't help but mutter to myself as I decided to refocus. Exercise like this might be pretty boring. Wearing out every part of myself until I couldn't go on, and then sleeping for a few hours until I was fully recovered to do it again, but there was something. Well, it was like playing a game. Grinding out some stats in a game, except this was more real. More important. So instead of drifting off in my head, I got back down on the floor and started trying to do a crunch. It didn't go over well, but the effort gave me some more XP. Body leveled up. I blinked, breaking my concentration on my failed attempts at squats to stare at the alert. I quickly threw the alert to the side and opened my stats. Body level 1. I'm actually human again. I muttered as I rose up. My body was burning and I was sweaty, but this time as I rose up, my body didn't wobble. I didn't feel weak other than normal exercise tiredness. I started walking around the small apartment and it didn't tire me out, or make me feel like I should stay close to the wall. I breathed in deeply and let it out. I felt normal. Well, I was hungry. I headed into my room and put on a few more clothes. A jacket over my light shirt I had been wearing while I exercised, a hat over my head. The hat looked like it was something I wore when I was younger, with a cute cat image on it, that had been covered in tiger claw stickers, but I put it on anyway. And then my shoes, which were weird. Crazy neon boots. This fucking city. But with that I stepped out of the apartment for the first time since I entered it. The hallway was quiet other than old equipment struggling along. I decided to take the stairs to start. See if I could handle them, plus get some extra exercise. I opened the heavy gate with the code I had and started down. My body handled the strain easily enough, even if my legs were still aching from my previous exercise. But it felt nice to just go. Not be trapped inside anymore. 2 weeks. Not bad. I was partially thankful that June was sort of an idiot. He hadn't thought it was weird that I was already able to walk. Just thankful that I could. The doctors probably hadn't bothered to tell him it should have taken me months to be able to walk on my own again. I wasn't going to bring that up to him. Instead, I steadily walked down the stairs, enjoying the feeling of moving farther and farther away from where I had been stuck until I hit the bottom floor. What a trash pit. I scowled, noticing plenty of trash lying around. The whole bottom of the apartment complex was a mess. As I entered the lobby, I noticed the 2 old Asian men sitting in the corner. Since I was hungry, I walked over to the vending machine only to swiftly turn around as I realized what it was they were offering. Schwab Schwab grape-sold grape-flavored fried ants. I shuddered at the very idea of that. So instead I turned around and walked out into the street where a street vendor was cooking up some sort of meatballs on a stick right outside the door. Did I have any idea what they were? Nope. But they weren't ants. I spent a couple eddies on buying one as I looked around. People were walking back and forth all around, and for a moment I felt like this was real. These were actual people, not just NPCs in a video game. I couldn't help myself but keep moving, even if I promised myself just a once around the block. I didn't want to be gone for too long. So I walked. The smell of the city was strong. But it was the people that I watched. Hobos sitting in filth and just dying. Punks, kids that were looking towards their future even if they had no idea what it would entail, stalked around. Some in the neon looks of tiger claws. A few of the other gangs wandered. I saw a Mox girl saunter down the street, a bag of clothes or something hanging from her elbow. She caught me watching and threw me a wink. I just smiled at her as I walked past. There were so many people. So much life, and so much death. I could hear shouts coming from alleyways, which I purposefully made sure to walk as far away from as I could. In the distance, over the sound of the vehicles rumbling around, I heard a gunshot, and then 2, and then 20. But it was far in the distance. And all the while people just lived, chatted either to each other or on a call. As I circled the block, I came across a little restaurant out on the side of the street. The setup was cooking more of the meatballs on a stick. Still hungry, I stopped and ordered a second helping. The taste was better at this place, I noticed to my pleasure. Passing the eddies over and thanking the cook, who looked quite pleased and gave me a very Japanese bow, which I returned. Then I continued on. I realized where I was as I turned the corner. I could see the little underground shopping area. It took me a few minutes of walking before I found the name on a sign to confirm. Cherry Blossom Market. Nice, I live right next to it, I muttered, looking down into the glass roof into the market. I decided to keep walking though. That would be an adventure for another day. Continuing on, I noticed the massive concrete structure that led up from the street, lots and lots of stairs. I walked around them for now, but I already had an idea forming in my head as I continued my walk around the block. I reached the front of my apartment complex, giving a nod to the vendor that I bought the food from as I stepped back inside. Time to get back to work. I stopped at the bottom of the steps. 5 floors, I reminded myself, as I started walking up the steps. 100 body experience gained. Arjuni, welcome home, I called out as I continued to do my crunches. Thanks, he muttered, having stopped to stare as I continued to do my exercise. You aren't overdoing it, right? He asked finally after a few moments, but I shook my head on my upward bend. Nope. Just making sure my muscles aren't all jello, I tell him as I lay back down to get ready for another. Body had leveled up again. Being able to do some basic running and be able to do more than just wave my limbs around had caused my XP to come in much faster, which did allow me to learn how leveling stats worked. Each stat needed 1000 XP per level, which multiplied by the level up. So to get to level 1 in a stat, I needed 1000 XP. To reach level 2 I needed 2000. Of course, as I learned, sometimes it was actually easier to level once you hit a point. Since I could do more than one push-up at a time, the amount of experience I was earning had gone up crazy fast. Which is when I learned that the more push-ups I did, the less experience I would get for each one. I guess as my body grew stronger, weaker exercises wouldn't help as much. But for now it still gave me XP, and I had switched to lots of different exercises to see. Crunches, push-ups, squats, jogging. Using the stairs in the apartment to go up and down. All of it gave XP. Hence why I was already at body 2, and working towards 3. Well, don't overdo it, he demanded with a growl before wandering into the apartment, losing his gear as he did, slowly going from a gangster to an irritable teenager. Oh, do I have a weapon? A knife or a gun or something? I asked as I continued exercising. What? Why do you want a weapon? He demanded. Did someone bother you? No. Hold on. I groaned, taking a moment to lay back and catch my breath. My core was absolute fire. I rolled onto my side and got up that way, knowing my stomach would be no good for a while. No, I went out on a walk earlier. You what? Martiko, you don't know anything. You can barely walk, and I can walk better actually. I told him as I stood up and walked around, showing him just how firm I was as I walked around the apartment. And I know I don't know a lot, which is why I need to learn. But from what I can see, it's dangerous out there, so I wanted to know if I had a weapon or something. Your katana was lost when? You don't currently. I'll get you something. A knife, and a gun at least. He tells me firmly as he turns his back and plops a pair of burritos onto the table. Come eat first. You must be hungry. We have to talk about your burrito obsession, Oni-san. I say plainly as I sigh and grab the burrito, causing June to look surprised as he looked at his own burrito in confusion. What's wrong with them? Nothing. Nothing at all. June was a teenager of his word. The next day he came home to me doing push-ups as I listened to the Netrunner guide, which had surprisingly given me some intelligence XP as well. So I was definitely doing something right there. Here, he said as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a pistol and a combat knife, laying them on the table. Oh, that was fast, Jun-ni, I told him. Thank you. I grinned as I went to check them over, but his hand firmly pushing them against the table kept me from touching. Do you even know how to use a gun? Mostly, I offered, which was the truth. I knew enough to at least not accidentally shoot myself, or someone else. Although I didn't have a lot of practice firing them. Shooting hadn't been big on my hobbies in my last life. Then I'll walk you through some of it. I'm not going to have you kill yourself after everything, he ordered, settling down on the couch as he grabbed the gun and casually unloaded it, putting the magazine and bullet that had been in the chamber down on the table. All right, first, this is a Unity handgun. 12-round standard magazine. Let me show you how to hold it, so you don't shoot yourself or lose control of it. He started firmly. After an hour of focused training from June, I felt my alert sound off. Handguns experience gained. Skill not unlocked, no XP gained. Handguns unlocked. I smiled as I felt myself growing more confident. Whatever I was doing was right. And a skill? Yeah, I liked that. I slept like usual that night, waking up the next morning feeling refreshed, and instantly got up to grab my pistol. My normal exercise right in the morning usually left me pretty wrecked to do anything else. So instead I was going to practice with my handgun to make sure the skill was raised up. I didn't want to die after all, and a handgun was only like barely above unarmed in this city. So as June continued to sleep, as I opened the windows in the living room spotting the sakura tree with a smile, I began practicing drawing and falling into a stance with my pistol. Over and over, every few times it gave me an alert. 125 handguns experience gained. Over and over. Because drawing your weapon and getting on target was more important in real life than just accuracy. Although I would like both. Slowly I was even gaining reflex XP as well as I was training in moving very quickly, and not just exercising. At least I had found a way to raise that one as well. It was currently at 1. Just like most of my stats, other than body. I grumbled, 1 intelligence? I was smarter than that. Stupid gamer system. With a grin I got another alert. 100 handguns XP gained. Handguns skill level up. Instantly I felt it take effect. With a gasp I went from my own guessed draw of my handgun to a smooth surety. I knew a better way to draw my handgun. Not guessed, knew. It wasn't like it had been downloaded into my head, it was more like I just knew, instinct, muscle memory. The whole thing. I could feel my grip shifting, becoming better. My stance adjusting naturally to better aim and control the gun. It felt great. I kept grinding. If this is what it was like at level 1 handguns, what would level 2 be like? Unfortunately no handguns alert came, only a few more for reflexes, until finally I stopped to check my stats screen. What happened? It had been way too long since I got something. Then I noticed it. Handguns was listed as max at level 1. With a bit of struggle I managed to focus on handguns, and that is when I noticed it. Good news. I would be able to raise my skill above level 1. Bad news, skills were limited by their governing stat. Without raising reflex, which had handguns listed under it, I couldn't raise handguns anymore. Which was like the Cyberpunk game, now that I thought about it. Damn it. I cursed. I had really wanted to keep that feel-good gamer feel. But now I am stuck, unable to raise the skill anymore. Nothing worse than being mid-grind only to have to stop. What is it? June asked, sounding tired as he stuck his head into the living room. Oh. Sorry Junie, I was just... It's nothing. I was practicing my draw a bit. Just in case. I told him with a sigh as I realized I was already feeling pretty sweaty this morning just from that. I hadn't even done my morning workout yet either. And yawn. GHT. Just don't blow a hole in the wall. It's unloaded. Just don't be a gonk. He reiterates and turns back around to his bed. I guess it was still pretty early for June. He was a teenage boy and it wasn't even noon yet. I sighed before settling the gun on the table beside its magazine. Then my hand twitched towards the knife. I would still have to practice with that too. If I needed to stab some. Gonk. Hey. Gonk. If I had to stab some gonk, I better know how to stab. So I grabbed the knife and started working into a rhythm of stabbing outward. It was awkward. I was really glad June had gone back to bed, because if he saw how awkward I was he might just take it away. But that didn't matter, because minutes into the practice I got an alert. Blades experience gained. Skill not unlocked, no XP gained. Blades unlocked. With a grin I continued to practice, rushing towards that high of gaining a skill up. I became a lot more practiced with the gun in just 1 skill up. How would that translate to my knife? 100 reflex XP gained. Another alert popped up reminding me that moving like this wasn't just increasing my blade skill. I smiled. Even if it was awkward, even if it was weird, even if it was kinda boring, although I did turn the radio on quietly so I didn't wake June, just to have some background noise. Being able to see my own improvement made it impossible to stop. In the real world this would be the most boring thing I had ever done. Just jab and slash with a knife over and over again at thin air. The fact I was already tired from before meant my arms were aching. My breath was coming out in puffs, but just the idea that with a bit more work I could see the numbers go up. Numbers make Motoko brain go bore. I grinned at the joke as I continued. I wouldn't stop until it was too much. Until I had to stop and go back to sleep and recover. Then I would start again. It honestly felt like I was in a tutorial space. That the outside world was barely impacting me for now. But I knew the truth. This wasn't a game. It wouldn't wait for me to get ready before kicking me in the head. So I had to train. And train hard. Whatever happened that caused me to get picked up by scavs, it wouldn't happen again. I could hear June wake up and come out of his room, but I ignored that because hot water over my shoulders was knees, and all I cared about at that moment. I hadn't managed to hit the next level of knife or reflex, but I would be good to go once I wake up after a shower. I had sweated like a pig. I didn't want to make a mess of my bed. "Hey, you alive in there?" June called out, and I groaned. "I'm alive. Just enjoying the water on my muscles," I called out. It was kinda awkward how open the bathroom was. The only real privacy was a row of blinds that fell down from the bathroom door, not that there was a door. Which meant that pooping or showering left me feeling a little exposed. "Good. Don't make me go in there and drag you out. I need a shower before I leave too." Right. I'm done," I grumbled, shutting off the flow as I grabbed a towel weakly with my tired arms. The only problem with my heavy skill grinding was that it left me feeling pretty worn out anytime I hadn't just woken up. But when I woke up I felt great and wanted to make my numbers go up. This was going to become an addiction, wasn't it? I couldn't help but ask myself as I sighed, drying off and wrapping the towel around me. "Hey Juni," I asked as I walked past him. "You're safe, right? When you leave. I mean, I won't have to worry about you just disappearing one day, right? I mean, what is it you do anyways?" I asked as I stopped at the entranceway to the bedroom. My question obviously surprised the teen, who scoffed. "I work at a casino. I'm protection and sometimes help out at the bar. It's perfectly safe. No one is gonk enough to try and break in or rob us. We have a lot of guards. You don't have to worry about me, Emoto," he said as I automatically translated the Japanese. "Well, your little sister is worried. You are all I have, June. I don't even know enough about life to survive without you," I inform him seriously. "So be careful, okay?" He is quiet for a moment before nodding to me. "I'm respected even for a kid, 'cause I don't lep the merchandise at the casino, so they trust me and pay me well. I don't need to run around and klep stuff for some eddies. Don't worry, Emoto. I'll make sure I stay safe." I nod once firmly. Good. I kinda liked June even with all of his attitude and obvious hot-headedness. Like I said, he seemed to have a rough life, and he was taking care of his kid sister. I could respect that. No, I did respect that. Whatever happened with my gamer skills and stuff, I would remember June's efforts. With that I got dressed into some clean clothes and crashed into bed. Blade's skill leveled up. I wasn't breathing too heavily when I finally got the alert that afternoon. After waking up, I went back to it. I hadn't quite reached reflex level 2, but it was getting close. But instantly I knew. I had been holding my knife like a gonk. I was more likely to lose my knife in a stab than actually shank someone. My grip shifted, my body adjusted, and this time when I made a stab it was fast and smooth. I grinned as I felt how much smoother I was. Yeah, that was cool. I rose back up, adjusted the grip on my knife as if I had been doing it for years, and placed the knife on the table next to the handgun. There was just one more problem. "I really need a sheath and a holster," I grumbled. The gun and knife had been handed over bare. How was I supposed to walk around with my weapons on me without any kind of holder? Stupid Oni-chan, I joked to myself, sounding like every anime little sister ever for a moment. I stopped for a moment, remembering that Cyberpunk Edgerunners was an anime. "I guess that means I can make anime real," I whispered to the room before bursting into giggles at the stupidity of that meme. Oh man. I need to get out more. I'm breaking down at my own jokes. I told myself as I decided to check out the market. Maybe I could find somebody with something that I could use. Getting dressed in my outdoor clothes once again, I put the knife in my jacket pocket, although I winced at how it felt like it was going to cut something. before sliding my now loaded gun into the back of my pants. It might be a stupid place to put it, but it was probably the safest place for now. With that I wandered down the stairs through the lobby and took a right, turning towards the Cherry Blossom Market. I still felt weak, but not because I was exactly. More because when I walked past a guy that was 8 feet tall and probably weighed in at a ton of chrome, it made me realize how easy it would be to get killed here. No wonder people are terrified of cyberpsychos. Suddenly I am too. I shook it off and headed into the market, smiling at all the little stalls full of random junk. I didn't end up stopping to talk to anybody as I walked around, just enjoying the sights even if nothing I saw was what I was looking for. Eventually I came across a little shop with a woman that looked partially familiar. As I watched trying to piece it together, I noticed her turn and start working on a radio. Something twigged. I think she was part of a quest or something? Huh? How weird. To see a person where before I had seen a video game character. Can I help you? She finally asked, suddenly turning to look at me, and I realized I had been staring for a while. Sorry, no I was. I guess you looked familiar for a moment and I was trying to figure out why. It's nothing, you just remind me of someone else I met. Huh? Well, do you need work done? No. Not at the moment anyways. You wouldn't happen to have a gun or knife holster? I asked quietly. After all, I had gone through the whole shop and hadn't seen a damn thing. Not something I deal with. I just do repairs. If you want something like that, you would need to find a gun store. They would have what you need. She answered with a shrug. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Is there a gun store around here? My question must have been super weird because she actually looked up from her radio that she had turned to look me over. What's your deal? I can see you have some implants. Your eyes aren't natural at least. So what's the problem? I don't know what you mean. A bit slow, ain't ya? Check your map. You have the cyberware for it. Get out of here, girl. You're wiggling me out. I don't want to know if you are just an odd one or a cyberpsycho waiting to happen, she said a bit brusquely. I blinked. Wow, that was pretty rude. Sure. I offer walking back home for now. My trip to the market was a bust, but at least I had some new info. That and something to see if I could figure it out. I didn't have a map in my list of options on my implants HUD. At least I didn't see one. Ugh, these stupid eye things. I had no idea how they worked. It was like moving my eyes wrong would close everything, or just spin the whole HUD, making it useless. I felt like one of those old people always complaining about losing their program when they just minimized the damn window. I really needed to get a primer on my cyberware. You think I would have by now, but it's not like the internet worked the same way here. I couldn't just connect to Google and ask. Plus June hadn't quite understood my questions either. It was so natural to use for people here, that he didn't understand my confusion. Stupid Onii-chan. I grumbled all the way home as I flopped onto the couch and started to once more pull up the HUD system. It was so weird. How was I supposed to know that flicking my eyes upwards very fast would alter the HUD's location? But flicking my eyes slowly would just scroll through the list? Seriously, I kept causing my HUD to flick, going from the right side of my peripheral sight to my left. Whoever designed this equipment needed to be shot. No wait, calm down Motoko, that is how you go cyberpsycho. But it would feel pretty good. Eventually the woman was right. I was able to find a map icon. It just wasn't on my HUD's drop down along the sides. It was an actual icon, like a damn desktop icon. I hadn't seen it, because it was on the other side of my periphery whenever I was using the drop down. Thankfully it was lonely, the only other program installed from what I could see. I remember June saying they had reinstalled most of my cyberware while I was in the coma, so whatever extras old Motoko had installed must have been reset. I guess that was good. I would hate to find out if people stored porn on their optic systems. Shaking that thought out, I hit the map and had to blink as a 3D style map was now the center of my attention. With a grin I started trying to move through it, only to realize I couldn't use my hands on this either. Stupid design. I grumbled but slowly poked at it with my eyes until I got it moving around a bit. It reminded me of the map from the game, which basically meant it was useless. Any part of the interior city was too cluttered to get any use out of it, but it did have an icon system for the big things. I was able to search for Ripper docks in the area, and to my surprise, there were actually two. There was the one in Jig Jig Street, which was that creepy asshole. But there was one just outside of Cherry Blossom Market too. I blinked. I had been pretty close to it on my walks. It was just across the street from the little food market I tended to get a snack from. I would check that out and see if I could get a cyberware primer. Then I did a search for gun stores. Unfortunately, the nearest one was a few blocks away. Definitely in walking distance, but it would still be a trip. I would have to prepare. Turns out I could actually set waypoints like in the game. I mean, I doubted they could ever work like in the games where the quests would auto-update and the like, but if I had an address I could set it up so my implant would give me directions. Basically just cyberware GPS. So after a bit of exercise I suited up again with my weapons ready and started walking to the gun store. I headed straight out from my apartment across the street. The first time I had done that in the city. I made extra sure I was checking each way even with the crosswalk telling me to walk. I didn't trust Night City residents not to run me over. Then I had a few blocks to walk, almost a straight shot as I wandered down a sort of shopping district, lots of little shops on either side of the long street. I even saw a clothes shop on the other side of the road that I might want to take a look at. It had a very Asian feel to it. Might find something cool. At the very end of the street I crossed the way and found the gun shop. Sliding inside I hesitated a bit. This place was full of weaponry, and the fact the owner was standing behind reinforced glass with a weapon that looked strong enough to shoot back through the glass at the ready made me a little nervous. But I wasn't here to cause trouble. Since he wasn't dealing with anyone I walked up. I'm looking for a holster for a Unity, and a sheath for a knife. I told him after he gave me a nod acknowledging my presence. Got the knife on you? I nod, gently pulling it out, making sure it was a slow motion. Didn't want to get shot by automated turrets or whatever other security this guy had. HMMPH. Might have something that will fit. Gimme a second, he called, turning away to go wander around the back room he had, only to return again in about 30 seconds. 2 pieces of metal and cloth in his hands. Holster for a Unity and a sheath. Should fit the knife. Let me check, he demanded, waving at me to push the knife through the gap under the glass. I did so and he slipped it into the sheath, adjusting the sheath for a moment or two before nodding and showing me how it fit snug. $50 eddies. I winced. That was a majority of the eddies that June had left me. I didn't end up spending much on food since June kept bringing home his gross burritos every night, but I did need this. It wasn't safe to keep the gun in my waistband, or the knife in my pocket. All right, I agreed, sending him the money before he slipped both items back through the glass. I spent a moment getting everything situated. The gun holster was actually meant to go in the small of my back, which the shop owner told me after I was trying to figure out how to get the weird clip to attach to the side of my belt. It left the gun in easy reach behind me instead, which would take a little getting used to. My jacket was definitely not long enough to hide it, but I guess in this city that was a good thing. The knife went onto my left hip. That way I could draw my gun with my right hand, and my knife with my left. Satisfied, I threw the owner a thumbs up, which he simply gave me a nod at as I headed out. As I stepped out I noticed that I felt better. The whole city was now seemingly there in front of me, and here I was a lot more protected and now visibly armed. I wasn't just a civilian open to any gangbanger to mess with. I was dangerous in my own right. It made the city in front of me look different. Look. Well, curiosity had killed plenty of cats. I decided to head back towards home, but stop at the Ripper Dock. I really needed to find out more about my cyberware. Stepping inside a Ripper Dock was an odd experience. The shop had a little office at the front that felt like I just entered a dentist. Can I help you? The receptionist asked, looking me over. Yeah, I need some information, rather than a Ripper exactly. Do you have a primer, or instructions on use for optical cyberware? The receptionist seemed to blink, confused at my question. I'm not sure I understand. She offered and I sighed. Seriously, what is it with these people and not understanding? I don't know how to use everything on these. I offer, pointing to my eyes. I need some instructions, or a how to. Or something, I mumbled, waving my hands a bit at how annoying this was. The receptionist took a moment before I could see her lips twitching a bit. When she spoke next I could tell she is holding back laughter. We don't have anything like that. That is something that is handed out to children, she chuckled. Did you never get chipped as a kid? The receptionist asked, But I knew she wasn't really wondering. She was just being a bitch. Listen, if you don't have it, I'm outta here. Have a nice day. I snarked back at her, and was just about turned around when a gravely voice called out. A moment. I stilled because the woman that I was looking at had twigged me about where I was. I remember this shop. The old Asian lady that was the Ripper here, looked like she got into a fight with a bear. Her face was a little scarred up. She was the lady that had a cyber psycho go off on her on the operating table. I remembered her little dialogue blurb in the game. Come on in, girl. I can help. She spoke, ignoring her receptionist, who looked like she realized she might have gone a bit overboard. Bitch. I entered into the doc's office, scoping out the many guns set up next to her chair. It's rare to see a girl as old as you not know how to use her cyberware. Yeah, well. I hesitated, but fuck it. Amnesia will do that to a person. Got picked up by some scavs apparently, they clept a bunch of my chrome. I was rescued but in a coma for a year. When I wake up, I don't remember anything. I mean, other than how to talk and stuff. Still getting used to my cyberware again. At least trying to. It keeps moving around on me. Ask, you were re-chipped after the scavs? Yeah, you are still in user setup mode, she said, simply waving me over as she took a long drag on a cigarette she was holding in her chrome hand. Come sit. I'll show you how to get everything set up to your liking. Oh. Thanks, I said, taking a seat, and a few moments later the woman was walking me through how to actually set up my HUD interface. Most people don't remember how to do this. They set it up as children with their first Ripper and never have to do it again. Can't tell you how many frustrated adults I've had to deal with after they had a complete reset of their Chrome, or lost their Chrome like you. She tells me as I am adjusting a few settings after finally finding the damn settings menu. What is this crap? I had to do a fucking Konami cheat code to get it to pop up. Look up, down, left, right in a circle, faster circle. Reverse that circle and then close and open your eyes. What a load of shit. Anyway. With that, the full HUD was revealed to me, covering my eyes and letting me adjust where everything was to my liking. It would also mean my stuff would stop moving around on accident with the wrong eye twitch. It would be locked, letting me more easily access everything. I had literally been stuck in set up your HUD mode, which is why stuff kept shifting constantly. Piece of shit. Finally done, I blinked my eyes, now able to see everything again, and after a moment able to access my HUD including my gamer options with almost startling ease. I literally sighed in relief, feeling my stress drop. Thanks, Doc. Sure. Come by when you want to get some more Chrome. I get the feeling I'll be seeing you again. She tells me with a nod before shooing me out. I hurry away, almost feeling like skipping as I ignore the receptionist and head out onto the street. I exhaled in relief. I actually felt like a person that belonged now. Time to grab some yummy street vendor food and go home. Oh wait. I was broke. Damn it. I pouted all the way home,